name is Kathleen Gorsline, and I'm with Lake Simcoe South Master Gardeners. Lake Simcoe Master Gardeners is part of the Ontario group, Master Gardeners of Ontario. We do a lot of volunteer work, and that's primarily our focus is to come out and educate the public. I've been with the Master Gardeners now for 8 years, but I've been gardening since I was 5 or 6 in my parents' backyard. From then, I learned to love gardening. And so I'm going to hope that today I can pass on some of my love for gardening to you. Gardening can be done in any shape, size of container. And some containers may look big and awkward, but they're really not if we treat them right. We can have small containers that we can garden with, and these ones are usually made for herbs. And I brought along some herbs today. There's some oregano, some curly leaf parsley. We have a purple basil and some rosemary. So if you want a small project, you can plant the herbs directly into the containers here, or you can make it something a little bigger and put it into here. When you're gardening, if you have limited mobility, you may want to sit in a chair and garden. If this is easy to work with, or the small containers are easy to work with, use the table as you have it. If not, it would be my suggestion to find a milk cart or a smaller table and place the container where it's very easy for you to reach over and work with, rather than trying to reach more than your mobility will allow. So, first of all, how do we start? Number 1, pick your container. Number 2, pick soil. In this case, we're using a potting mix soil, and it's very important when you buy potting mix soil that you get one that's soilless. This is 8.8 liters. If you think about that being peat moss, you would have a container about this big because it's packed so dense. Here you have 8.8 liters, and it's light. It probably weighs no more than about 4 pounds. So what is in a soilless mix? According to the ingredients here, we have peat moss, vermiculite, perlite. It'll have fertilizers in it. It has mycorrhizae in it. And for anybody that doesn't know what mycorrhizae is, it is actually a fungus. But it's a beneficial fungus, one that you'll really enjoy having in your garden. If you have a well-established garden, mycorrhizae are in there normally. They've built up over time. If you have new gardens or new soil that you're using, and you're not buying something like a soilless potting mix that has a mycorrhizae in there, you may want to purchase some and put it into your mix. The reason being is that it adheres itself to the roots of your plant, and it helps bring the moisture in and up through the plant and give all the nutrients to the plant the best way known. So when going to buy a soil, get a soilless mix. Get a potting mix. Make sure that it has fertilizers in it, that it's lightweight for you to use, and if possible, it has mycorrhizae in it. We're going to start with the little containers. And plants come in different sizes and shapes. They come in cello packs. And to pop the plant out of the cello pack, it's been my best experience just to push up from the bottom and then gently take the plant by the roots and lift out. So here, we could have 3 containers of parsley. Looks nice. You've got parsley that'll last you all the summer because you're only going to clip back what you need. Or we could change it up and put something like this rosemary in it. Now this rosemary is coming in what we call a 3-inch square pot. And so I might have to take some of the soil and stuff off to get it actually in the pot. But you can see how that would be easy to do. Oh. And I'm going to shift right now and put gardening gloves on. And if you can tell by my hands, I wear gardening gloves all the time, but I have hands of a gardener with dirt under my nails most of the time. So if your plant won't fit, simply upend the container and loosen some of the soil around from the edges. And carefully press in. And when you're pressing in, make sure you do press hard around what you're planting here, because you want all the air moved out from around the roots. The other thing we could plant here is this oregano. So you get the concept of having herbs in a small pot, very easy to do. Pick things that you will use in the kitchen, and remember that it's easy as a snip from your table, from your planter to the table. Now, if we didn't want to do this tiny garden, which is the one I love using because I can put it in my window at home, we could move up a size into a pot this size. And I think this is still comfortable for me to work, but I'm going to move it down here because this is even more comfortable. And I'll just move this out of the way. And what we can do with this planter, and you notice I'm just using hands. You can use a trowel. In fact, a trowel would be what I would normally use, but hands are good. You see the lemongrass has height. So if you're doing something that you want to put out on your balcony or deck or patio, and you want something that has height and still have an herb, then I would recommend lemongrass. So this lemongrass is well rooted. You'll notice here, you can see all the roots growing out. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull those roots off, because by pulling them away, we're going to be able to get it out of the pot, and we're actually going to be doing something that we need to do before we plant it. Always take your plant and pull the roots out a little bit. And then you can plant it in the soil. Okay. We can take this rosemary that we were working with earlier. And put the rosemary in. We can put some of that curly leaf parsley for a bit of color. We can add the basil. And we can take this nice oregano. And again, just making sure the roots aren't coming out through the bottom of the pot. And if the plant isn't easy to come out, when you're using a round planter, simply roll the plant with a little bit of pressure, like this, and that plant will just pop out. Now you may want to keep your signs so that you recognize what the plants are after they've been planted, or if you recognize them, there we are. So you have a planter with a little bit of color, lemongrass, purple basil, rosemary for lamb, parsley for just about every recipe, and oregano for most of your Italian sauces. Okay, now we're going to focus on some floral arrangements. And floral arrangements can be really simple. And again, it depends on the size of the container, where you want to work and at what table height. We were working in this type of container with our herbs, but I'll show you what you can do with the same container, and we're going to plant it up. And again, I like to mix and match vegetables and herbs and flowers, so I might again use lemongrass for the center focal point. But in this case, I'm going to use this Dracaena. A Dracaena is sometimes called a spike, and it's used just to give height to your arrangement. So for me, I always find it easier to start with the tallest plants first, because normally they go into the center of the container. So I'm going to start first with this Dracaena. And I'm going to plant it into the container. All right, so it's in. And I like geraniums. Geraniums come in all kinds of colors. This one is called a raspberry swirl. So it's very nice. And again, to get it out of the pot with doing little damage, I'm just going to roll it like that, which will loosen it up. And I'm going to find a space in the container very close to the center Dracaena. When I started, I made sure that the bowl was about half full. And the reason I made it half full and took some of the soil out or brought it up to the halfway level is that you're going to be putting plants in and you're going to have too much soil by the end of it. Halfway is usually a good indication, but I've got 3-inch round pots here, or 4-inch round pots here, and they normally come with a fair amount of growth on them. I'm also going to put in the container a trailing plant. This is Ipomoea, and it's also called potato vine. And potato vine will grow out and cascade down the side of your container. So, is it coming easy? Yeah. Oh my goodness, look at the root growth on that. So once again, with that much root growth, I'm going to tear at it. Treat it rough, because in the end, it'll force the roots from growing in a circle and continuing to grow into a circle to grow out and get as much nourishment from the soil as they can. And I'm going to take another potato vine. And potato vine comes in a variety of colors. It comes in purple, it comes with an oak leaf shape, it comes with like a maple leaf shape, all different kinds and varieties of flowers. So there's something that will suit the texture of the rest of the plants that you're working with. And again, look at the root growth on this. So I'm just going to tear that off. And I'm going to roll it because I know this one is going to be right into the container. If you're planting this in May, late May, you're going to find that the root structure probably isn't as robust as this is. There we are. So again, I've broken out the root, and see where it was growing in a circle? I've stopped that circle, and I've given this plant a nice opportunity. And again, I've put this in. I'm going to want to fill this in with a few more plants, and I have some coleus with me. And my thought was either to put the coleus in this planter that I already started, or put it here. One of the other things I could do is plant coleus in this planter to fill it out a little bit more. This is one plant, and you see how the coleus spreads? So it could fill in a big space here. but I think it's too big for this arrangement. So what I'm going to suggest to fill the rest of this in is I'm going to use my herbs, because now I have a floral arrangement that will look pretty, but remember the color in these herbs is fantastic. The texture being upright for the rosemary is excellent. And with the parsley, we've got that hint of green. And I'm going to put that right over here. So, there's a planter done. It has some nice height. There's some floral in it. You've got cascading plants hanging down. And now I've got some herbs in there that I can use in the, for cooking. I could do the same thing with this planter. Again, it started with a Dracaena. This has a wave petunia in it. And a wave petunia is a nice plant to get for two reasons. It will cascade over just like this potato vine will. So it will fill this in completely with color, and you really don't need anything more. When you first plant it, though, it's going to look a little bare. The other thing about wave petunias, is that they don't need to be deadheaded. A regular petunia does, a wave petunia doesn't. So now you've planted something that the only work it needs is watering. Also, when you consider working with different types of planters, here's a tall one, a little taller, and this is a perennial. It is a hosta. You're going to find that hostas, every year people in their garden are going to want to split their hostas. And so you can likely ask them for a bit of hosta, put it in at the beginning of the year, and if you take care and put it in a cold room in the winter, you're going to have it the following year. If not, treat it like an annual. But this thing will fill in and cascade, and I think it looks absolutely beautiful on its own as a single plant in a planter. So don't always think that you've got to put 5 or 10 plants into a planter in order for it to look nice. Okay, now you've been out and you've seen how we planted a medium size and a small container for herbs. But now you may want to tackle a larger container. And the best thing to do is go for a medium that is light in weight. Before, when we were working with this plastic container, this container, very, very light. And using the soilless mix, it also means that you can pick it up afterwards and move it without having to hurt yourself. If you use a metal or a glass container or pottery container, they look beautiful, but you're not going to be able to lift the plant even with the soilless mix afterwards. So I always try and work with stuff that is very lightweight. And this container is just a wooden one, and it's a hanging basket, so you can plant a hanging basket with absolutely no trouble. Now this one, you'll notice, has a very weird shape. If it had a flat shape, we could simply rest it on our container. But if you go to the nursery and you're buying a container like this, they will provide a stand. Now we can work here on top of the milk crate again on the stand. And actually, for me, this is absolutely perfect height. So we're going to start again. And I think we're going to plant this Dracaena in the center, again for the height. And again, I think I might go with the geranium, but I also have these begonias. So I'm going to use both of them. So in comes our geranium again, the raspberry swizzle, because I think it's got such delicious color. And I'm going to put in some begonias. And we're lucky because we have one of the top growers of begonias right in this area. Okay, so we've got one begonia in. And I'm going to plant a second one. Begonias come in all kinds of colors. Pinks and oranges, reds, yellows, whites. In fact, this one looks white almost on this side, but if you notice, it's a very nice pinky tinged color. Very unique. And again, I'm going to want something that cascades down. So, going back and using the potato vine again, I can put that potato vine in. And I can take our other potato vine. And put it in. I'm going to move you around a bit, sweetie. I talk to the plants. And I'm going to take that nice coleus that we have with that spreading look to it. Ooh, and once again, we have the balling root around it. So once again, I'm going to break that up. You can take a knife and slit it down the sides. I just use my finger. And place it in the back of the container. So there you have a nice hanging basket, one with plants that will cascade, one with plants that fill in, and they always will offer continuous color throughout the season. So, I've shown you ways to plant herbs. I've shown you how to plant florals. I've given you some ideas on how to plant florals with herbs. And I've shown you that you can take one solitary plant, such as a hosta, and make a beautiful planter. So the rest is up to you. Don't forget, soilless mix. Pick your planter ahead of time. Know what height you're going to be working at. Make sure you've got things where it's easy for you to reach. And good gardening.